All right, welcome back to another episode of Meeting Virginia. I'm super excited. We have Mr. Matt here from White Creek Realtors in Loudoun County here on the show. How are you today, sir?
I am fantastic. It's been a good day for me, even though it's been rainy and cold. I've been having those conversations, those real estate conversations, and generated a solid lead, a buyer lead, which is pretty cool. You know, buyers are really fun to work with in general, but I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I've never been on a podcast before, so it's my first time. I might have to edit out the...
I want to say I appreciate you for being on the show. Second thing, I appreciate you for being on the best show in Loudoun County, the best podcast in all of Loudoun County, in Northern Virginia. You kind of mentioned it, but I do want to give you a congratulations for, it was originally going to be one thing, but now it's two things. First thing, congrats on the sale of a property recently. I think that was a few days ago or
Yeah, it was. Thank you. That was a long time coming, man. That was a long time coming. We listed in July 1st, but I was helping them like change the floors and their paint and all of their stuff basically since January. So it was a full
January of last year?
Yeah, of last year.
Okay.
And we closed January 6th of this year.
Okay.
So it was a huge project. It was a huge project. Well, it was a $1.3 million house.
That is
huge.
Nice. That is fantastic.
Thank you. No, that was a huge project, and a lot went into it. So it was really kind of stressful because the market shifted on us. It went from really, really low rates, and everyone was buying, to like everyone, sellers and buyers, were both holding their breath, waiting for the other side.
Yeah, that's a good way to start the year. Over dollar listing.
Oh man, I tell you that I can't agree more. I feel truly like blessed to have succeeded in that project, to have helped that family sell their house and move on, and to have the first commission of the year. You know, to be able to I just got Tom Ferry coaching. Shout out Tom Ferry. They're phenomenal. And I've got, a geographical farm, an area that I'm really hitting with my marketing campaign, and things are looking up. Things are looking up.
That is solid. That's a fantastic way to start the year. Yeah, double congrats to that. And you just picked up a lead.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know.
Too.
Well, some of the things that Almanac Casey have been talking about is just always have those conversations. And generally, it takes like 100 real estate conversations to get one solid, to get an actual transaction. So it was just very casual. I was having dinner at Red Lobster, and I made sure to tip a server who wasn't serving me but helped provide me good service, and I guess it was just instant karma. I gave the tip to the manager, and the manager said thank you very much, asked me what it was about. I said, they just greeted me when I came in, made sure I was taken care of, even though I was obviously not their section or their guest. And I started in food industry from, Buffalo Wild Wings, B-Dubs, to Red Robin, to Outback Steakhouse, Breakers, Sports Bar. Like, I worked at a lot of restaurants.
Breakers in Herndon?
Yeah, in Herndon.
Okay.
The pool hall. Yeah, and, so I just appreciate a good server, a good worker. So I gave the manager the tip and said, hey, this is what it's for. And afterwards, he just came and chatted me up. And I told him I'm working in real estate. I was a server, but now I'm in a couple of years into real estate, and he said I was the right guy to talk to. Very, very fortuitous, very lucky on my part.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That is excellent timing. I do want to ask you, I was going to ask you about kind of the market and what your ideas about real estate are, but now I kind of want to ask really fast, when it comes to sort of that $1 million price point, because you said it took a full year. I guess, what did you find that was more difficult when it came to trying to kind of get it like souped up, market ready, presentable? I'm asking because I've seen people kind of wonder, is it harder to sell a higher price point house versus a lower price point house? So I'm just kind of curious to know, because it's a full year, so I'm just curious like what went into the getting a market ready, because you kind of did it while the market's shifting, and that's a whole different
No, that's a great
Needs
question.
to face.
Here in Loudoun County, the average home price is close to the median home price. They're both about $770,000 to $740,000. So you've got an expensive market to start, right? Just from the beginning. And when the rates were, less than inflation, 2.5%, 3%, it was basically free money. So people could afford houses that normally they wouldn't be able to. And during a normal market, when rates are 6%, 7%, 8%, it's when you're above $1 million, it's almost like you're shooting unicorns. Like you're hunting people that don't generally have $1 million plus.
Yeah.
And like a lot did go into the house. Like it was original owners, so from 1999 to now. That's 23 years
Okay.
of abuse, of scratched floors, broken windows, missing planks of wood. Who knows? 23 years of use.
Yeah.
So there was a lot that went into making the house what it, is worth, what it's worth, and market ready. And that by itself was a huge amount of work. But we honestly got lucky in a lot of ways just by consistently marketing and being persistent in our follow-up. Anybody that came through that door, I made sure to let them know we were trying to make a deal, we're trying to make business happen. And in December 1st, we locked in a contract. And everyone in that family, and myself included, are all grateful to the buyers. They were great on their side. They made an easy transaction. It was all very smooth. And we're all just happy to have closed. And they're moved to Brambleton and moving on with their lives, looking at their next stage in their lives. And I'm just honored to have had the chance to facilitate such a big deal, such a large transaction. And I, no less, I was going through chemotherapy while I did that. So that was, nothing to sniff at.
Oh yeah, no, the fact that you pulled that off during kind of what you were going through is nothing short of remarkable.
Thank you.
I'm curious too, because I never told you this, it was maybe around May or June of last year, I saw some Facebook ads of yours pop up, and it was really good. And it stood out a lot, because I'm weird about videos and marketing. I try to look carefully at people's videos and see what are they doing? How's their ad working?
Yeah.
And I saw yours, and I remember, I haven't seen it that recently, but I remember it was sort of it almost looked like a drone shot, kind of like an overhead. You were in the living room, I think. And I don't know if that was the same listing or if this is a different listing, but I don't know. I'm curious to know what went into, I guess, more of the marketing too, because I feel like when it comes to real estate, people don't understand that marketing is a big part of getting the house sold.
You're absolutely right. Marketing is really everything. And that was the same listing. That was the same one.
Okay.
And that was by... so I have grown up with this guy, Peter Sardo, and he works in photography at CPV Media.
Okay.
And they're phenomenal. So I had Bronson of CPV Media come out. I tried to hire Peter, but it just didn't work. But they really worked with me in what I wanted to do. And I wanted sort of a more dynamic, shots here, zooms, slow zooms, zoom outs, drone shots to music. So I wanted that more dynamic sort of style, which is something they, specialize in with real estate. And yeah, so there was a lot of facets of marketing, but just from the photography standpoint, there was a lot to get ready to declutter and to stage properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you get this or if you've gotten it yet. I always hear people say, "Oh, real estate agents, why do they what makes them so special? All they do is stick a sign in front of the house." And I sit there, I'm like, people don't understand just how much. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just biased towards real estate, but it's the fact it's not just listing it. Of course, you have to market it. You have to. It's a lot of. What's a good way to put it? Almost project management, depending on if you're the buyer side or the listing side, and so
it's like hiring a vendor, any vendor
Yes.
for any kind of work. Anyone can get licensed to tile or to be an electrician or to do those kinds of things. But the longer you do it or the more you care about it, everyone, once you get that license, there's not a lot of standard for work. So it takes, vetting, careful vetting, and getting multiple quotes to find out who's going to be a good fit. And it'd be nice if there was more oversight, but it's not my power.
Yeah.
But when it comes to marketing, I personally have taken classes about marketing, how to do in-person marketing and online marketing, social media marketing, different ways to optimize your, the words you use and just how to get attention. Like I just finished reading Cashvertising. I don't know if you've heard of that.
It's funny. I was listening to a podcast before you came in, and literally the guy was like, read Cashvertising.
Oh,
so it's extremely funny that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So I literally have heard about it today.
Yeah,
all
just
2 hours ago.
I believe they're right. Whatever they said, they're totally right. There's a free PDF that you can find too that I read. Super convenient. It's full of great content. It just talks about different kinds of words to use to compel people to buy or to sell or to listen to even, and just different innate needs that people have, like security. We all want to be secure.
Yeah.
Winning. We all want to feel like we're number one. Like there's nothing else to achieve. Like there's different just innate human needs. And it talks about different ways to target those. Yeah, it's sort of like using, like mind, magic, voodoo, manipulation almost. That's sort of how it goes into it. But, it works. It gets people in the door and it talks about different things that connect us.
I'm going to get that book. That's a sign.
Yeah,
That's
it's definitely a sign, man. It's definitely a sign. That you just heard it on a podcast too.
That's literally a few hours ago, the guy was like, he was talking about building a brand. And he said, one of the books that helped me build my brand was Cashvertising. So I recommend people buy it. And now here you are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah,
So,
it helped. Every ad I would make, I would try to have at least 2 different elements of what they would talk about in my ad. And just the way, my call to action or my introductions or anything, I would try to have 2 at least elements of desires of humans, of man.
Yeah. Do you, I'm curious to know really fast, I usually when the show starts, I try to ask people their background, but I was kind of excited for your recent 2 wins, so I kind of forgot to do the original intro, but I do want to ask, you mentioned, I don't know if we were already shooting or not, but you mentioned that you used to work in different restaurants, and then you transitioned to real estate. What made you go, what's kind of the background story to that? How did you go from restaurants to real estate? What made you find out about real estate and then...
Yeah, it's funny. I find a lot of overlap in the jobs of being a restaurant server, restaurant waiter, and real estate. And the core of the job is to find out what your client wants and to provide that.
Yes.
You facilitate their transaction. You orchestrate the whole transaction. You put everything they need in front of them. You give them all the options. You're educated on all the options. And then if they say they want something that's contradictory to their option, to what they said they want, you said, hey, you said you wanted a ginger ale, but you just ordered a Diet Coke. How about, and you would use similar scripts. They're both scripted to a degree, serving a lot more than real estate. But what it came down to is I was used to sort of working for myself, and I wanted a job really that provided me more income if I worked harder. I didn't want a regular 9 to 5, show up to an office, have a boss to tell us what to do. No, I'm a creative person. I like to sort of work early hours and late at night, and I want to get paid to do it.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a job that if I just worked more, if I straight up just worked more hours and spent more time educating myself and investing in myself and working on myself, that it would pay off. And real estate just seemed like an easy answer.
Yeah. Did you already know, did you plan on getting into real estate while in the restaurant industry, or how did you...
No, man.
Because I asked because I used to work at a restaurant too.
Oh, yeah?
I used to work as a dishwasher and a bus boy at a bar back in college. And I had no idea what real estate was. And I read that, people who are wealthy do real estate. So I was like, oh. I read that, millionaires own real estate and they were involved in real estate. And I was like, huh, so I gotta do real estate.
Yeah.
So I was curious to know, like, were you like kind of thinking, I need to do real estate, but this is a stepping stone to get there? Or did you kind of stumble upon it while maybe one day you're just like, I hate serving, I need to get out of this. Real estate's maybe you stumbled upon it or someone told you about it.
Well, I was sort of lucky. During the pandemic, I started to work on social media marketing, and I tried to look for a couple of different niches of people that needed internet presence, like specifically like plumbers and electricians on Craigslist that don't yet have a website, but have enough business to where they would need to expand. So I got really good at making a good website and creating advertisements, and I started reaching out on Craigslist and doing that, while I was also helping my girlfriend at the time and her family flip houses.
Oh, nice, really?
Yeah, so this is out in Central Virginia. This was from like 2015, the fall of 2015 till 2021-ish, 2020-ish. I was living in like Harrisonburg and Stanton and Orange County, Gordonsville, all over like the wine country, Central Virginia.
Okay.
And I was helping my ex and her family flip houses. I was sanding floors and replacing fences and just sort of doing peon hard work and listening to them, like her parents, negotiate the deals, while I was at the same time, educating myself on marketing and sort of put it together in my head like, man, listen to them make these deals happen. The money that's changing hands is really attractive. And I'm targeting real estate agents. What if I just get my own license?
Yeah.
And that was that. That was literally that. Like, I knew how to market, and I saw a lot of the work that went into taking a house and making it into a luxurious house, and I just sort of got that experience and was really attracted to the prospect of prospecting for leads and then selling them houses and helping them buy and helping people move in to the city. Like, I actually started working as a realtor in Fairfax, but I grew up in Loudoun County, and now I get to help people move into the city that I've lived in basically my whole life.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a really great spot to be in, just in general. I mean, I get to sort of let people, I get people moving from California, Florida, Texas, all over the place, asking me, hey, what's a good area to live in? I work at the Pentagon, or I work in D.C., but I don't want to be in the city, and I get to sort of, give my 2 cents on what different neighborhoods provide and what areas are good or not good based on what their needs are. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm helping people.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm helping people make sure that the next 5, 10, 15, 30 years they spend in a house is the right house, the right neighborhood, the right city, the right everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to know, because I usually recommend people try to get assets.
Yeah.
I would say there's different kinds of assets, but I think for most people, the simplest one to get is real estate. But I feel like now, some people like your renter still try to get real estate, even though the interest rates are a bit high. Still try, be thinking about it, try to move toward it. So I'm curious to know, say someone's a first-time home buyer in this current market, I guess what would your recommendation be to them as far as, I guess, one, if they should buy a house, and then two, if they should buy a house, what would be the step-by-step process that they should take to get there? Because I feel like for people it gets daunting to think, oh, this house is like 500, 600,000.
It is daunting. I want to rewind it just a little bit back to where you said assets. I think it's so funny you bring up real estate as an asset, because obviously as a realtor, you expect me to say, oh yeah, real estate is the biggest asset there is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, thinking about it, you buy a house, and sure, you have a good job, you can afford the house, everything, you're in it clear and, title's clear, everything, you buy the house, but every month, you're paying property taxes, you're paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance every month.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're renting out that property or you're doing something with it, it's a liability as much as it is an asset.
Yes.
It's only really an asset if it's being rented out or if you're flipping it or if you're selling it on the verge of selling it. But until you do that, it's not providing you money, it's not assetting you money, it's
Taking away.
Yeah, every month.
Yeah.
So it's sort of tricky.
He's a contrarian realtor.
I know.
No, I totally agree. By the way, I completely agree. It's funny because I feel like every realtor would be, even if I don't know, if they thought that, they'd be like, no, buy real estate, it's the biggest asset. So that
Work with me, work with me.
Yeah, no. So that's awesome. Like sorry to.
Well, it's true.
It is
right?
true,
You
yeah.
pay your mortgage, you pay your insurance, you pay your interest, you pay your taxes, there are HOA dues. Even after you pay your mortgage, you're paying taxes.
Yeah.
So my thought on that is, if you have a stable job and you know you're going to be living in an area for at least 3 years, then great. Buy the house, especially with your first, because as an FHA loans are designed for lower credit scores, first-time home buyers. You can afford more house for less money. It's sort of a no-brainer. But you're still paying money every month on that house. So if you get like an inheritance, right, and you don't have a steady job, but you have a big sum of money, maybe buying a house just normally isn't the best move. If you plan on renting it out, if you plan on refurbishing it and selling it, then sure, talk to your realtor. But I would recommend buying a business or buying something that's an asset that provides cash flow, like a store that sells stickers on the internet. Anything that provides monthly cash flow to be able to afford or at least offset some of your mortgage, so that when you go into it, you're not like bleeding out every month. You know, that's what I would recommend.
Okay. See, that's fascinating that you say that, because I 1000% agree.
That's a belief.
But no, it's just funny because most realtors I think would stick with real estate. And to be honest, I don't think I usually tell people real estate's fine too, just because I think there's a difference between like a business owner versus someone who can buy a house and then try to sell it and get the profits and then maybe try to get another house or flip or whatever.
I got you.
But I 1000% agree. And it was funny because I was telling my friends, I was like, I think business is a much better asset than real estate. And they're like, why? And I was like, because the way I see it, a business you can have for like even 10 years. Let's say you have a business for 10 years. It doesn't get cash flow. This is being, what's a good way to put it?
Hypothetical?
It's hypothetical, but this is being very idealistic too. Let's say you get into a business and you're like Jeff Bezos, and for 10 years or so, no one knows who you are, you're not really cash flowing that well, you're doing okay, but not like excellent or super crazy. Year 10, you can go from like, whatever, let's say $3,000 a month to like $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $100,000, whatever. I feel like real estate, like you were saying, if you buy it, it's not cash flowing, so you're losing money. And even if you try to get into it as like an investor, it can be difficult. It can become like a job if you don't really know exactly what you're doing.
You pay a higher rate as an investor. You have to pay a bigger down payment as an investor. Like, that's not, discredit real estate, because historically it is the number one way that people have been able to raise through the socioeconomic classes in the United States. That's just a fact. Number one way to gain wealth historically in America is by buying and holding property. But we're in a tough spot right now in America where we've seen housing prices increase year over year drastically because of the pandemic, and rates are no longer artificially depressed to help home buyers. So if you need to buy, it is a good time to buy, because not a lot of people are really buying. I usually work with listings. So I've seen sellers, and I see sellers sweating, dropping prices, offering concessions, doing whatever it takes to sell their house.
Yeah.
And it is better to buy and have a house than it is to rent, because if you're paying roughly equal payments every month, right, you're paying someone else's mortgage, someone else's equity, someone else's bank account, if you're renting, as opposed to paying yourself. So at the end of the day, it is better to have your own house and to buy your house than it is to rent. But I would recommend looking into buying an asset that provides cash flow before buying a house.
Yes. Yeah. I completely agree.
That's my plan, at least.
That's a good plan. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. Real quick, so would you say that for right now, it's probably good for people to hold off on buying if they're a first-time home buyer and they might not be as liquid, or?
Well, no, like I said, like even in my market right here in Ashburn, I've seen houses that started at $1 million that got picked up at $920,000. So it's an $80,000 of a drop, and that's a good drop. And they're probably getting concessions. They're probably getting home inspection with contingent. Like they're getting protections that you normally didn't see 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So, right time to buy, wrong time to buy. It really all does depend on everyone's individual needs. So I don't push anybody to buy. Like this guy, this lead I was just talking to, the manager at Red Lobster. I was asking him just about why he wanted to move. Like, is it because he thinks it's a good time? Is it because he's an investor? Or, is he moving to the area? Does he need a place to live? Turns out his lease is ending and he's tired of renting. I get that.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's tough to deal with landlords, having to ask them to unclog the sink, only to have them tell you it's your responsibility. It's just annoying to deal with. But it really does, in my mind, boil down to whether it's a right or wrong time for each individual person. And everyone should own their own home. I mean, that's the American dream, to have, your house, your family, and stable job. But it's not always the perfect time. But it'll never be the perfect time to buy because, if prices go down, rates might go up. If rates go down, prices might go up. You have to pick your poison.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I want to say this. Matt's a good realtor because he's super honest. Because I'm completely serious. A lot of realtors, and I'm not. This isn't me trying to bash realtors, of course, but a lot of realtors would probably just be like, "No, buy, sell, it doesn't matter." I've known some because I'm the exact same way. I've met people who are like, I'm thinking about. I had a story actually. A buddy of mine, he had a girlfriend. He had just started dating her, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a house with her." And I was like, "I don't want to get in your personal business," but he's like, "What should I do?" And I was like, "You're not married. Do you plan on getting married anytime soon?" And he's like, "I don't really know. I just kind of met her, but I think it's a good thing. Let's move in together." I was like, "If I were you, I'd wait to see, what the long-term plan is. Do you even want to stay here? Do you want to move somewhere else?" I was like, "The market's good. If you can afford it now and you think it's fine, do it." He's like, "Well, can I sell afterwards?" I was like, "In theory, yes, but in practice, maybe, because you might get the house and you might sell it, and if you have to go fast because of work or whatever, you might lose money." So it just depends. It depends. So he ended up not doing it. He waited, and he's happier that he waited because they ended up breaking up.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of worked out.
That would have been so messy.
But no, I think a lot of realtors might have been like, "No, just buy," and then use me because if I'm being completely honest, they would have, yeah.
No, that's very true. And honestly, maybe I'm just not, I've only been doing this for a couple of years, so maybe I need to just be like, "No, buy me more. I'm the answer. Whatever you need, I'll figure it out." Who knows? But truly, I do think there's never a wrong time to buy if you need to live somewhere. If you're going to be living in an area for even a couple of years, what a big part of the Breakfast Club, Cash Flow Breakfast Club, the investor group that I'm a part of, talks about is if you buy and you think you might need to sell, maybe just rent out your property. A lot of people don't realize you could landlord. You don't need to go to school for it. You just sort of make sure you take care of the house. Like if your tenant says, "Hey, there's a leak," you take care of it.
Yeah.
It's not a credited class you need to take. So landlording is an option people don't really realize that they can take advantage of if they want to buy it, because they should. I mean, everyone should buy their house and have that equity work for them. But it's obviously they have their reasons for not buying, whether it's they think it's going to be temporary, or they're not sure it's the right place or the right fit or whatever it is.
Yeah. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, because I think about a year ago, I mentioned that people, depending on their situation, should buy and get an asset in general. But then someone in my DMs called me out, and he's like, "Well, you don't have a house." So why are you telling people to buy a house? And so, yeah, I took it personally. I was like, but I told him, I was like, well, I tell people it depends on, everything depends. Like some people, a business is better to buy, in my opinion, than real estate. For some people, real estate is better to buy than a business. Mm-hmm. I was like, for me, my ultimate strategy was to build a business, build a brand, and I'm really weird about money. So like, I just pour money. It's not, I don't recommend it for everybody, but I'll just push money into like stuff like classes, ads, whatever. I'll put money into it. And I was like, for me, it helps me stay liquid because my rent right now is like $450. Like I found a really good place. It's $450. So it's like, it saves me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I can put it into like a bunch of other stuff that I think will over time, lead to something like multiply or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to know, do you think that's a good strategy or do you think I find the people and
I think is it Grant Cardone on YouTube? Greg or Grant?
Grant, yeah.
Grant Cardone. That's his philosophy, isn't it? To rent cheap somewhere and take that money you're saving on a cheaper rent and invest it into an asset, into businesses, into stocks. That's his whole shtick. I'm pretty sure. Like, there's a lot of different philosophies on it. Like I invest into crypto, into traditional stocks as well. And I do not yet own my home. I plan to by the end of the year, but hey, that's just a goal. I haven't done it yet.
Matt, you're a real estate agent without a house? How dare you?
I know. That's going to be the only qualification. But I don't know. I think I want... Well, my situation is I've got a lot of family all over Maryland, and I want to stay close to my office, close to Weicker. I love it here. I love the community at this office. I love the camaraderie, and everyone here is so helpful. Mm-hmm. So I want to be close to where I work. I'm just sort of myself canvassing different neighborhoods and figuring out where I want to buy. If I want to buy a condo, if I want to maybe hold out for a little bit of a bigger house, like a townhouse or a rambler somewhere. So really, I don't need to buy because I don't have a family. I'm not moving to an area. I'm comfortable. But that's my spot. That's my situation.
Yeah.
What originally got you into real estate, into working as a realtor?
That's a good question. When I was in college, so like it's a long story. When I was in college, I was broke AF, and I got kicked out twice from college.
What?
Because I was so broke that I couldn't pay tuition. And they were like, "Can you believe?" So yeah, it was pretty bad. And that's when I was working at a restaurant. I was working at a gas station too, and doing like other random stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "How do I get more money? Like I'm broke. I can't pay rent. How do I make more money?" And I went to like the library and just started reading stuff. And I remember reading like all these finance books, and it said that like I think it said most millionaires built their wealth through real estate. And I was like, "What the hell is real estate?" Like I didn't even know what real estate was as a concept back then. And then, long story short, I started looking into it, and I was like, "Oh, so I need to be a real estate investor to get rich, to make money." And then when I finally moved here from PA, I lived in PA. I moved here in 2017. I was like, "Oh, let me get my license, and I can learn about real estate while trying to also help people buy and sell real estate." So it's kind of a
win-win.
Win-win. At the time, I didn't realize that being a real estate agent is actually not nearly as easy as people made it out to be. So in my mind, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll just go in and sell and list houses and wherever." But then it's like, "Oh, it's actually a bit difficult." It's pretty difficult.
And you were educating yourself by going to the library, the public library?
At the time, yeah. Like, I really knew nothing.
Shout out the public library.
Absolutely.
I mean, I use that thing for, like, audiobooks all the time, free CDs, free books. Please.
Underrated.
Very underrated.
Yeah, I've got so many debates with people about the library because they're like, "Oh, I can't afford books." I was like, "Dude, you don't even just go to the library, get a free card, and then just stay there all day if you have to. Just read books, just like videos, all kinds of stuff." See, now I'm getting into a rant because like even the libraries have at least in Loudoun County and like probably I've only been to like Russ and stuff like that, so I don't know about the other counties. Mm-hmm. But I know they had like free courses too, and like all these free resources to like learn languages and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, you can't go wrong. This is like thousands of dollars worth of value for free for just living in the area.
It literally is. Like I listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad, the audiobook. I got it from the public library. I've listened to 5 books this year, I guess last year, just for free, for absolutely free. I walked in and said, "Hey, I would like a card," and they just give you one.
Yeah.
And they just have an entire building of free resources. So that's where I was also getting educated. I was reading about different psychology and philosophy of sale and different stuff like that. So and there's a lot of free resources out there, guys. If you're struggling to get started, start at the public library for free.
Yeah. If you have a question, the library probably has the answer somewhere in one of the many millions of books that you can get there.
What was some of the stuff you were reading early on that started your journey?
So I got a Rich Dad Poor Dad after I would say I started getting into finance books.
Mm-hmm.
The books I first started reading, I couldn't even tell you the name of them. They were just like random. I would literally just go to like philosophy section, the finance section, find a book and just start reading it. And like if it had like credit in it, because I didn't know anything about credit literally at all. Like I knew nothing about credit, what it was, how it functioned. I would just sit there and be like, what is money? How does money work? Oh, this is what money is. Okay, this is how it's backed. Oh, okay, I understand now. And then eventually you see like they'll mention like Rich Dad Poor Dad or Robert Kiyosaki, or they'll mention other people in the book, and you're like, let me check out this person.
name they just mentioned?
Like who's his name? Then you see enough, you're like, oh, everyone keeps mentioning Rich Dad Poor Dad. Let me read that book. That seems to be a good book. So then you read it. Funny story about Rich Dad Poor Dad. Sorry to be long-winded. During my graduation, I didn't even want to go, and I remember the only reason why I remember that day being so good is because I finished Rich Dad Poor Dad during my graduation, because I got it from the library. It was like a small copy of it, and it would fit in my pocket. And I remember I go to my graduation. My parents came up and they really wanted me to go. I was going to go to the bars instead. And my friend, they came to visit, one of my old buddies from like grade school, and they sit there and they take their time to go through everyone's name by class or whatever. And my last name's R, so it takes forever to get to R. And then
W. I feel you.
Oh yeah, it's probably.
I feel you, man. We wait.
But yeah, it takes forever. So I'm just sitting there reading it, getting through the whole book, and then I remember they finally called me. I shake the guy's hand. I really did not want to be at graduation. If you could see my face during graduation, you'd be like, "Why is this kid so miserable?" And I remember my buddy texted me, and he was like, "Dude, are you done?" And I was like, "Yeah." I shook the guy's hand. And he's like, "Well, if you want to, why don't you just leave?" And I remember I had just finished the book, and I was like, "You know what? I've done the book. I got my handshake." Because they don't give you the degree. They send it in the mail.
Yeah,
so it's like,
it
there's no point in me being there. So I was like, why am I here? And I remember just getting up. I was like in the middle of the section too, so I had to squeeze through people. I just got up, went down the aisle, and then walked out. But
excuse me, just
they're probably like, what's this guy doing? Why is he leaving?
Like, we still have another hour and a half of singing. What do you mean?
But yeah. So I guess to tie it all back, though, for anyone watching, go to the library. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is.
I have a question for you.
Wait, so hold on. You didn't completely finish, I don't think. So you were studying just in general finance, philosophy. Why real estate? Was that because all the finance books were saying, hey, rich people, millionaires, they've owned real estate?
Yeah, that was literally it. Like at the time, the goal was to get money. I didn't know how. Real estate was the answer. And then I tried to work jobs, and I was like, I don't make enough. And then it was hard to find at the time, even though I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there weren't any good books about specifically how to buy real estate at that time, at least that I could find. So I didn't know the process at all until I got my license. Me taking the classes was me learning about real estate, specifically about real estate for the first time. So I figured if I'm going to eventually buy real estate, me taking the class and me being kind of in the field and knowing the nuances was probably the wisest way to get into it.
Very cool.
So now, looking in hindsight, there was a bunch of different ways I could have gotten into it, but there were no I remember there was some investing books, but they weren't they were more conceptual than practical. If that makes sense. It didn't tell you go to a lender, save up X amount, have X credit score. It didn't say any of that stuff. It just said, oh, you need an asset. Real estate's an asset. If you have an asset, you can your net worth will be A, B, and C. So
yeah, get that. I've read a couple of different real estate books about how to like double your income as a realtor and how to be a power agent and stuff like that. And usually they're right, but there's nothing like going to an office and learning from a broker and then going on a broker's tour and to having listing appointments and getting appointments and failing those appointments that really like shows you how to be a realtor. Like there's really nothing like it, like being on the job and working the real estate world to learn what it takes to buy a house and to to house hack and to cash flow and do all that stuff.
Yeah. A lot of books don't really give you the nuances. At least none that I've seen. I'm not saying there aren't any.
If they're out there, recommend them, guys. Let us know. We'll read them.
Even Rich Dad Poor Dad, as good as it is and as much as I like it, at least the original one, like his first one, I guess, it's very conceptual, but it's not really practical.
Right.
Like he gives you the idea of like the 4 quadrants, but he doesn't really tell you like step by step how to get my first house or how to, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't really tell you how to actually move through each quadrant. He just tells you kind of about them, what not to do conceptually, which is good, especially if you're me and you didn't know I didn't know what the word entrepreneur even meant. So I was like, entrepreneur, this is a brand new.
Sure is how you say that?
No, really, that's how it was. I was like, entrepreneur. I was like, what is that? Is that French? This is interesting.
But you always wanted to be like a sort of a businessman, like own your own sort of business growing up?
Not intentionally, no. I think looking back on it, I did entrepreneurial things, but I didn't know, it wasn't, I'll do stuff just because I like the creativity from it, but at the time there was no interest in money or anything like that. Like, it's supposed to be your interview, so I gotta ask you more questions, but...
Sure. I was gonna say, I was not always gonna be in real estate. I was gonna be a DPT, a doctor of physical therapy.
Okay, interesting. Okay, huh.
Yeah, and
it's a very big transition.
It is a big difference. Well, it was while I was interning and doing sort of internships at physical therapy, and I did one in Appalachia, Harrisonburg area, Rockingham County area, and another here in Loudoun County. And just the work that the PTs were doing was so monotonous. It was so repetitive. It was like the same exercises, the same sort of routine. It seemed so boring. It wasn't anything like the exciting job I thought it was. Because I had done physical therapy plenty of times growing up. I was a soccer player, baseball player, MMA fighter. So always injured, always something going on. And I loved PT. I'm like, you can get paid a lot of money to help people. It sounds great.
Yeah.
And during, right before the pandemic, I was doing an internship, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going to need 5 more years of schooling minimum, because you need a doctorate to be a physical therapist.
Really?
It used to just be a bachelor, but now you need that extra degree.
You need like actual, so you have to go to like med school or...
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Well, so you got like a bachelor's of some kind of sciences, some kind of health sciences, and then a doctoral degree. So you skip the master's part of that, but you go straight from bachelor's to doctorate. So it's a lot of schooling. And I was just sitting there thinking, in this same amount of time, if I were to be working in real estate, just working my butt off, I could be making a 6-figure income in half the time.
Yeah.
And just, it was a point where I was helping my family and just focusing on work and realizing that if I wanted to make something of myself, I need to start now. Because I've taken statistics, and I know the power of compound interest and how starting hundreds of thousands of dollars difference from starting 6 years in the future. What did I value more? And I still love working out. I love and all that sort of good stuff about how to take care of your body. But I didn't make it people with real estate.
Yeah. I feel like with that too, real estate debt. As I imagine, if you take out loans for like a bachelor's degree, You're kind of like almost putting yourself backwards just to get ahead
Absolutely.
without the guarantee into it. What is it? I forget how much a license is nowadays in the test. Probably like 200. Just take the test, I should say.
I think getting started in real estate is and everything, license like an MLS fees, century log fees, dues, like $2,000,
Yeah.
a couple grand. So it's not. You get started. You can't start with nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And even then, after that, you need to market yourself. You gotta
Which is still
have a nice, outfit on, some cologne or something. You don't want to smell bad.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely some money, but you're right in the fact that it is far, far less money to have to take out student loans and to spend multiple years incurring debt just to get started. It's far less money. It's not even comparable.
Yeah. It's funny. My major in college was criminology because I was going to go to law school. That's how I got to Virginia. I was going to go to law school in D.C., and then I ended up not going, of course. But I met a lawyer one time at this party. He worked for the government. I think he did some kind of agricultural law, something like that. It was really I don't want to say random, but it was law that I've never heard of. Me and him were talking about it for a bit. And I was like, oh yeah, I do real estate. And he was like, yeah, my wife does real estate. And I was like, what do you think about student loans and all that stuff? And he was like, I hate them. He was like, as an attorney, even for the government, I make good money, but he's like, it's not that great when you factor in all the stuff I had to buy, the loans, and he had a house. So he's like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
He was like, but his wife, after 5 years, she was making $300K. So he was like, she makes more than me. She didn't take out any loan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so he was like,
weird.
He's like, not going to law school was actually a good decision. And that was a lawyer saying that. So at that time, I was like, okay. So I'm not crazy, even though you can imagine my parents were like,
Well, don't rule out the craziness. You might be right this
might
time.
be, yeah.
But, I don't know.
But yeah, no, so, yeah, I feel like you're probably already thinking it now, but you're going to be like, physical therapy was definitely not the best move. Real estate definitely was the better decision.
No, that's 100% true. I know I would have been a good PT, and I do still. Originally I wanted to work with Doctors Without Borders as a physical therapist. I wanted to work with Medicine Sans Frontières or whatever, however you say it, Doctors Without Borders. And I realized, if I were to just hustle as a private citizen, I can donate money, I can donate my time, I can start my own charity. There's a lot of things I can do as an educated, wealthy private citizen that basically sort of is, transcending those borders and gives you more freedom than tying yourself down to an organization like that. They do great work, they're fantastic, but you can help the world without having to spend 6 years in school incurring debt and then trying for 10 years to build up a resume to even apply to something like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Ideally, what I'd like to do is take my active income and start a charity that's whole goal is to respond to natural disasters, like floods or fires or earthquakes or tornadoes where communities are sort of devastated and just need immediate help. Being able to respond with medical supplies, water, blankets, food, clothing, and just a couple trucks would be great. Because I've always sort of yearly, I've done this thing where I'll knock on doors in my neighborhood and ask for food. Or this last year I did any kind of supply, so it was toothpaste, clothes on top of that, and I'll just donate it. Because it's so easy to forget the place of privilege we are, where we're just sort of in our house is nice and safe, we have our stresses and we have these things that keep us busy, but we have so much privilege and just power to help others that unless we're asked by somebody or reminded by somebody by them asking for help, it's hard to remember that we can just do it and just give, So I've tried to make a conscious effort to remind myself, my family, and my neighbors that we have more and we can help out a lot of people by just giving a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard of the, what is it? I think it's charity water.
Charity water?
I think it's called charity water. I could be mistaken.
What is it?
I saw, so it's like an organization, and what they do, I think, in certain places in Africa, they encourage people to donate like $1, $2, $5. And I don't want to butcher this statistic, but it was saying something like even like $20 US, like currency, could feed a whole village, or I shouldn't say feed, could hydrate a whole village for like a month or something. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about it because the two guys in the podcast donate all the time, and they were saying how people don't donate enough, but in America they might also say how they might have like a middle class income or whatever and say, oh yeah, life is terrible, and they're like, oh, but you could, it's worse over here. Would you willing to donate to this person? They're like, no, I wouldn't. I don't want to donate to them. And it's like you're coming from a place of privilege. Like $20 for you isn't that much, but $20 for them helps them stay alive for another month. So I don't know. You brought that up and it was interesting.
No, I think I heard something similar to that, where it was like an NBA players like sponsors putting in wells all over Africa, and it might be part of what they do, or maybe just it's something similar. But yeah, I've heard of something of a similar statistic where like $20 or so can take care of a village for a month.
Yeah,
like this. Just to think about $20 isn't a day in America. Like utilities and like everything. Like
$20 nowadays with Netflix going up in price, that's pretty much like a month of Netflix at this point.
And that's if you just have Netflix. That's not the other necessary ones like Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Go.
You go to Chipotle sometimes.
Well,
that's like $20. Yeah, movies. You go to the movies. But yeah, I don't know. He brought it up, and I sat there and thought about it. And I was like, sometimes it's crazy to think by just being born in a certain like area of the planet, which is no one controls it, is the difference between being able to buy Netflix for $20 and not even thinking about it versus $20 could keep me from walking like X amount of miles to get contaminated crappy water and then walking back. I don't know. So
I think about that all the time. How literally just being born in one area versus another completely, dramatically changes everything about you.
Yeah.
About what religion you're more inclined to follow.
Yeah.
What educational path you're more inclined to follow, if any. Just the differences in living in a state is massive. Let alone different states or different countries. Like, when I was young, 19, I made sure to travel all over Europe to try to get out of this bubble that is Loudoun County, Northern Virginia.
Okay.
We're in such a bubble of privilege here that it can be hard to recognize, because sure, everyone still has problems, and it's hard to recognize privilege when you're going through cancer, when you're going through anything. But I made sure to get out in the world and just try to see what, like poverty and regular people and just all these different situations are, what they live like, and open myself up to these different experiences, because it's important. It's important to try to broaden our perspectives to understand others.
Yeah. When you went to Europe, where did you go specifically, or was it just kind of like
all over the place? But what I was sort of had in my mind was I was in Paris, and my buddy and I were lost in Paris, just walking around, having a good time, but lost, like the trip had been. And we were walking over this bridge in a sort of really quiet part of Paris, France, and we were looking out over this street where on either side were crowds, like just a city of naked homeless people without clothes for the most part, like tents on either side of this, what looked like a train track, but couldn't have been a train track because it was not being used, I'd hope. Just this road, this alleyway that stretched on as far as you could see, that we're just sort of standing over, like, holy crap, this is real pain, this is real poverty. Like growing up in lush Loudoun County, richest county in America, like 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
You never see anything close to anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was just sort of eye-opening to see like just the sheer amount of pain, of homelessness, of need out there. And that was in Paris, France. And I backpacked. I mean, I had worked at Breakers, Sports Bar and Grill, making good money with my buddy Jared for several months to be able to afford a trip. And I backpacked from Rome to Barcelona to Paris and sort of made a big circle back to Barcelona. So I went to like 6 or so different countries, 7 different countries, and cool. Had a great trip. It was honestly a phenomenal trip. But I knew like now was the time. I was 19. I was sort of in community college, figuring out what I was going to do, and I'm like, if I don't go now, I'll never go.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good experience to have when you're younger. Like just being able to backpack and see different like cultures and different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I know someone who's watching this is going to probably call me out about traveling.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Because I've made videos in the past about traveling, how much I hate traveling, but there's nuance to when I say I hate traveling, because when you did, I don't consider the traveling I hate. I think that's the more, at least, you know, it sounds like a more, what's a good word for it? Like you actually got something out of it. You're actually paying attention to like different people as you're traveling. But I've known some people who claim to be travelers. I made fun about this years ago, and I knew people who were like, "I'm a traveler. I've been all these different places," and they always go to like the places where Americans are basically marketed towards. So they'll go to like Ibiza in Spain, and just Ibiza in Spain, or they'll go to like I don't know, like that many great places, but they'll go to places like me and my friend were just talking about.
Barcelona, Spain, Rome, Italy, the highlights.
Well, Rome, Italy, I think is different because there's actually stuff there's culture there that you can actually take in.
There is, but do you choose to take in that culture, the catacombs, the colosseums, or do you choose to go to the discotecas?
Yeah, exactly. That's So I've had people who were like, I'm a traveler, but then they go to like Germany and they only go to Oktoberfest. And it's like, all right, well, did you get anything else out of Germany besides Oktoberfest? And they were like,
yeah, blonde women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like all the stuff that like they're just selling you the things about these places that it's not really about the culture. It's just like that one thing that gets you to spend money in their country if you're American. So like you're not really a traveler. Like to me, it's better when people like go places and at least observe and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting that this is here, or they're taking in the culture in some way, shape, or form. But so I bring that up just because I know someone's going to hear this and they're going to be like, oh, Lenny said he likes that Matt travels, but if I travel, it's an issue.
Well, that's because you go to Egypt and don't know anything about the pyramids. You don't spend any time. Yeah, there's differences between. I see what you're saying. Yeah, differences between traveling for a reason and traveling because you get sucked into the propaganda and the marketing, and it just looks like a lot of fun, and you just want to blow some money. Which is fun. There's nothing wrong with wanting to take a vacation, especially in America. We have such an unhealthy work relationship and a relationship with vacations and work hours in general.
Yeah.
But you can expand your perspective so dramatically by taking a trip to a place that you've never been to before, or seeing, just talking to people you've never spoken with in an area you would never be able to normally. The benefit of that is so great that it's really unfortunate that people don't prioritize expanding their worldviews or listening to other people's when they do travel.
Yeah.
Like, balance it out. Yeah, sure, go to Egypt, have a great time, but also maybe listen to the locals too.
Yeah, that's always the point I make. Like, you can do both. It's fun. But,
like when I went to, my trip was a little bit janky as I missed my layover flight. And so I had to like audible it in Istanbul. But I started in Rome because I love history. So we went to the Colosseum, my buddy and I. We went to the catacombs. We did a walking tour.
Is this the catacombs
in Rome, in Italy, Rome.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the Christians used to sort of wait outside of the catacombs while people would be mourning their dead in secret, and then they would, the Christians would execute people leaving the catacombs. And we got to walk through these cold places, and the catacombs in Paris are lined with bones and skulls and super, super freaky.
I've seen photos. It looks creepy.
It's insane. Like I saw those, but also, I had a churro under the Eiffel Tower. So, it's a balance. It's the dichotomy of travel.
Yeah. I know, I think in Europe, part of the culture is they take I forget exactly what they call it, but it's like a year just to travel and just to like experience the world and take in new insights and experiences. And I think that's healthy.
I do too.
Wow.
I definitely do too. Well, they also generally have a better relationship with work and better workers' rights than we do here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think here, funny, I was kind of somewhat related, but kind of random. Curious to know what you think about this. We were talking about, me and my friend, we were talking about Italy. Because we were looking up, I think Italy is the longest living group of Europeans, at least documented. Maybe there's some random obscure group of people in Europe, who knows. But as far as actually civilizations or modern day communities, Italy I think is the longest living European population. But we were kind of making a joke about it because they're the longest living, but I think they also have the highest rates of smoking. The diet's not the healthiest, and there's something else about. I think their infrastructure, as far as their medical infrastructure, is not that great. So we were like, how are all these things that should be prioritized down here, but they live longer than everyone else? And we came to the conclusion that they're just less stressed because they apparently in Italy it's mandatory to take an hour at least every single day to break from work, and the workday is not as long as it is in America or anywhere else. And I think they don't even work as many days. Sounds like they just work a lot less. And they spend time with their family and they actually enjoy life. So despite all the bad,
Man, what's that like?
I was despite the bad diet, despite the smoking and all that stuff, it seems like just being less stressed outweighs all that. I don't know if that's what someone in the medical community would say about that or how they would look at that. That was kind of our conclusion. So I'm curious to know, what do you think about American, I guess, the way our work life is in general for the 9 to 5 person? Because I tend to think it's a bit excessive.
Yeah. No, it for sure is. It's for sure excessive, but I think it's excessive because of the need that has come out of stagnated wages. As housing prices have increased over the years, wages have not increased, and people have had to work more to afford the same standard of living.
Yeah.
It's as simple as people not getting paid enough to live, so they have to work more. So we have an unhealthy relationship with work. Because you got to have jobs, you have to have industries, you have to have mills and assembly lines and things that make infrastructure. But you have to actually pay these people enough to live too. Not to get preachy, but a minimum wage was designed as a living wage, where one minimum wage worker was able to support themselves, their partner, and 2 kids in a house they owned.
Yeah.
That's not the case by far at all. It's just not the case.
Yeah.
So we have to have change, or an unhealthy workplace relationship where you work overtime as the minimum.
Yeah, which is insane. It's insanity.
Isn't it? Another reason I want to be a realtor. I'm my own boss. I work my own hours. I work a lot, but I could also pick up. I get on the MLS late at night, 11, 12, 1 a.m., just because I'm what's going on? What changed? And I love it. It's, the devil I picked, and I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really call that unhealthy. I would just call it more of an obsession.
Yeah, which is, it's good to, it's funny. I always feel it's funny. People get into entrepreneurship sometimes to be their own boss, and the thought is that you won't have to work as hard. And I tend to find that you get in entrepreneurship, and it's not a bad thing. I think if people really like it, it becomes a great thing. They end up working 2 or 3 times, not to poo-poo or shun anybody that works hard, normal jobs. But you get an entrepreneur, you were saying, you're 11, 12, 1 a.m. looking at the MLS. Most people, I don't think, when they leave their job, are going to go, let me go back to the office at 12.
Right.
Just because I don't want to. It's like most people don't
Exactly.
do that. Some people probably do because they really love their job, which is good. Most people, they leave their job and they're like, I'm done. Get the hell out of here. I'm done. So, yeah, it's funny because I feel like you go down the entrepreneur route, you end up working, like your life just becomes work. By default, it's like, I'm sure you probably think about like real estate, or you're probably sitting there, probably right now you're going to open your phone up. I don't know if it's on airplane mode or not. You probably have some calls about somebody looking for a house or asking a question about properties or something. So it's just...
And even if it's not as, beneficial or something like that, I'm excited to just get back on the matrix and check out what's changed.
Yeah.
Like see what moved off of coming soon and why it's no longer coming soon.
Yeah.
And what happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm blessed to have that, right? Because it's a job I chose.
Yeah. I want to I don't want to take too much of your time if you got to go soon. What time is it?
Yeah, I've got a hot date with World of Warcraft and a bag of popcorn soon.
You know what? I'll let you get to your date soon. But before I let you go, since you brought up World of Warcraft, there was something I wanted to ask you about, and you might be mad at me for asking this question.
Oh, no.
I heard you're a fan of Lord of the Rings. Is this true?
Absolutely.
So, don't be mad at me. I've never seen a single... Actually, that's not true. I've seen one Lord of the Rings movie, and it's not really the official series. It's The Hobbit.
Now, anger is something I reserve for special situations. Disappointment, however, comes and goes all the time. What's wrong with you? What happened?
Everyone says that. Everyone...
Good.
That and Star Wars. I've seen one Star Wars movie, and it's episode 1, which everyone claims is the worst.
Are you talking episode 1 or episode 4? Like
The one with Anakin. The one from like the
Anakin,
2000s.
yeah, Phantom
I think
Menace,
it's
episode 1.
Yeah, with like Darth Maul.
one of the greatest films ever. Duel of Fates.
Sounds like Star Wars.
One of the greatest songs to be battled to ever. Duel of Fates out there for my Star Wars nerds. No, I'm a total Star Wars Lord of the Rings nerd, and I'm holding it against you a little bit that you haven't seen them. So that's to be honest. But like you said, I'm an honest person. So
You brought it up earlier, and I think I remember on Facebook a few times you posted about Lord of the Rings, and like I got the reference because like I don't. It's not that I don't want to watch it, but I tried.
It's a commitment.
That's the reason why I haven't watched it. It's a commitment, and they make Lord of the Rings not so much as far as I know. I know Star Wars, they keep making more, and the story keeps expanding. Then like there's the cartoons and there's like I've had all my friends love Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and they'll be like, "Dude, how do you feel about this movie? Or how do you feel about this new thing coming out?" And I'm like, "Guys, I've seen The Hobbit, and that's like a prequel, I think." And they're all like, "That's not a real Lord of the Rings movie. It
Doesn't count.
Yeah, they're like, "Doesn't count."
No.
And then I'll be like, "Yeah, Star Wars. I saw like episode 1," and they're like, "That's the worst one." Like you didn't even see the good ones. So, I mean, technically, when I was like a little kid, I saw like one of the originals with like Darth Vader, but I don't count that because I don't remember because I was young. But I had to bring it up. I was hoping that it wouldn't affect our friendship, but I just had to bring it up just to...
the fact that you're honest about it means it only affected like a little bit.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I know it's late, so...
No, thank you. I had a great time. I really appreciate it. It really went by fast.
I think so.
I went really quick.
See, I always feel bad because I talk too much. And things like this, you kind of get into it, and it's like, I want to ask more questions, but I don't want to be, like, taking this time until, like, 12 or 11. And then for the editor, too, I don't want to, like, make it too long for the editor.
Yeah, we want to take care of the editor.
Yeah, but before we close out, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I neglected to ask you, or maybe something out of the blue that you wanted to bring up?
I mean, not particularly. I'm honored that you asked me to be on your podcast. I really appreciate the chance just to talk about my story a little bit and talk about just who I am. But no, I'm good. I appreciate you, Lenny. Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate you for being on, Matt. Before we close out, where is the best place for people watching and listening to find you?
That's a great question. My easiest place to find me is probably on Instagram right now. My handle is Matthew Whitmore, MatthewHitmore. I've actually kind of low-key really popped off recently on Instagram. I started in October with 300 followers, now I've got like 2,500.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really good. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I've done 3 different like paid ads sort of thing, which brought in some people, but that was like a week or 2 ago when it ended. So I don't know what happened, but I'm very happy with where it is. So yeah, I'm on Instagram every day. I post, and so Matthew Whitmore, that's me.
That's a solid. That's like the 3rd win at the beginning of 2023.
Man, I've been working so hard. I tell you, cancer really kept me down, and I've had a fire lit under my butt ever since I got out of chemo. I've been working so freaking hard, dude. I tell you, just keep waiting, more to come. There's more to come this year.
That is excellent. That's excellent. See, I gotta like when the cameras go off, I gotta pick Matt's brain. He's got his Instagram tips. I'm trying to
all the good secrets come out after the cameras.
all the
go
good
off.
stuff. Yeah, you guys don't get me. But yeah, I appreciate you for being on, man. We should do another one at some point whenever you want to. We got some time. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching another episode of Meeting Virginia. Special thanks to Matt for being on the show. He's a fantastic guest. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.